that maybe fit this bill. I don't know. What do you think?
Andre, let's go to you first.
I mean, I think it's just a matter of time. I think the real question is, what is it going to be? Will they market it as a Switch Pro, a true successor, or kind of like a spin-off thing? And I'm kind of thinking they may go toward what we may be seeing Microsoft do, which is basically in the footsteps of the mobile marketplace, where we see more of a gradual successor, where whatever the next Switch is, like it'll come out, it'll offer probably a lot of features that individual mentioned, but it will be fully backwards compatible, and at the same time, the games will still work on the existing Switch as well. Those will be upgraded on the newer Switch, but it'll have the same library. And then at some point down the line, maybe after a couple years or so, that's when the exclusives will start coming to the newer Switch, and then people will probably be, probably want to upgrade at that point. Much as we've seen, like as I said already, on mobile, or even in Nintendo's own history. This is basically the Game Boy Color, where you had a ton of games that worked on both, but over time you saw more and more get moved to being Game Boy Color exclusive.
Yeah, that's pretty much what Microsoft is doing. They've announced this, that when Xbox Series X comes out, there will not be any first-party Xbox Series X exclusive games for at least a year. Anything that they release will be Xbox One's games that will be enhanced by it, but still be playable on Xbox One.
Exactly, I love that.
I'm starting to lean into this idea, and maybe it's after your conversation, Marty, last week with this Switch Home idea, that the Switch Pro, like if the Switch Lite doesn't dock, what if the Switch Pro doesn't undock, right? So it is this home box console where you can, whether it's, hey, here's a spot where you can put the cartridge, right? Still works with your Pro controller, still connects to your other, Joy-Cons, but like the actual current OG Switch is kind of like the hybrid of those two things, right? So you kind of go one way or the other. I don't know.
Yeah,
and they improve the ability to move games from the home version to the light version.
Well, you can do with any two Switches anyway already. So that's just a function that exists in the OS.
Well, I'm saying works. Improve on that what they do already, but improve on it.
That makes sense.
I don't know.
Absolutely. I don't know. I think that this time next year, I think that there will be a Switch Pro of some kind.
And there was something that I heard on the Switch Island mention. I think it was John who mentioned it on there. He said that, and I thought it was very interesting, was that they could still have a Switch Pro that utilizes the same cartridges on either the Switch Pro or the OG Switch or the Lite. But in that cartridge, since they're building 64 gig versions of those carts, that they would have a version of the game that works on all those units, but have graphic packs or whatever you call it in there on the cart, inside the cart, that when you do play it on the Pro, that you get that up-resed version of the game because it's all in the 64 gig version of the cart.
Or maybe it's just a download that only downloads if you have the Switch Home or the Switch Pro.
Which would still be beefy, so you'd definitely need some storage. But
yeah,
it's just like PS4 Pro or Xbox One X downloading 4K texture packs.
Right, and here's the thing: a dedicated home version of the Switch would have more room for storage.
Yep.
So I just think that there's something.
So you're thinking SSD?
Yeah,
I think that would be built-in Ethernet.
There'd be Wi-Fi too.
Well, yeah, Wi-Fi definitely too, but
it would have to be improved
but unlike any previous Nintendo system that has had network capabilities, they've never had a dedicated Ethernet
Yeah, I get
port.
what you're saying now. Like, it would have to have built-in, I think.
My only concern is that I know Nintendo tends to do things better than some companies, but my only concern with this, the idea of the Switch Home and the Switch Lite being the new Switch is that it's essentially Nintendo moving to a PS4 Vita thing.
But at least the same games will still play on every system.
Right.
That's true.
That's the only difference. Like I said, it's an improved thing that they're doing, but that's not usually Nintendo's MO. Nintendo's MO is doing something that we didn't even think of.
I wouldn't be opposed to doing this Switch Home model, but I think they still would want to keep the hybrid model as well, like a 3-tier system.
Oh, for sure. They keep all three. They keep all three models.
And they're part of the Switch family.
Yeah. Andre, is that crazy? What do you think?
Sorry, you broke up there. Can you repeat that?
Is that crazy? What do you think?
Sorry, is what crazy? 3 models?
Oh, like the 3 models, Switch Home, Switch OG, Switch Lite.
I thought the Switch Lite is crazy. So you have a Switch without the ability to switch. So yeah, it is a little bit crazy, but I mean, I don't think it's like there's precedent now. So, and I do think there would be some appeal to having, like, for me, I barely use the Switch in handheld form. So I would actually like welcome like a cheaper, tiny console I can just take with me anywhere. Like, I'd be totally on board with that. There's a little, I don't know, $150 box that I can just plug into a TV and I'm set.
Yeah, I'm normally handheld, but playing Dragon Quest for the last 3 weeks. That text is so small. I've been playing it almost all on a TV. But yeah, only so like his description in the email is almost exactly what one of my predictions was. Is that, you know, there will be an upgraded Switch, which will maintain the hybrid functionality. The only thing I don't agree with what he said was themes being processor heavy. You know, unless you're doing animations and crap in the background, I don't think that's true. It might take up a little bit more memory.
Music.
Yeah, it may take a little bit more RAM, but it won't take up all that much more processor power.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thanks for weighing in on that. Thanks for writing to us. Thanks for the questions you sent in. This has been an absolutely fantastic episode of Nintendo Dads, episode 263. Andre, we want to thank you again for being on the show. If people want to follow you on Twitter and on the socials, where do they go?
Yeah, you can follow GameXplain on Twitter or Facebook at GameXplain, and you can follow myself at Andre Segers on Twitter or Instagram. Actually, don't follow me on Instagram. I barely post anything. Just follow me on Twitter at Andre Segers.
Awesome. As we close out the show, we're going to close out in a different way. We're going to do our normal spiel, but also this week we want to share a poem that was sent to us from good friend of the show, Cat Janitor. If you remember Cat Janitor, he is the one who sent me a copy personally of Diddy Kong Racing for Nintendo 64, which I still need to film some footage of. We didn't meet that goal for Extra Life, but I'm going to be generous and I'm going to play the game and film myself doing it. But here, Cat Janitor has been sick this week, a little bit of stomach virus, so he sent us a haiku. And so we want to get a little cultural here on Nintendo Dads as we finish. So here is his haiku. Right after you barf and the sick feeling passes, what's better than that?
Very nice.
And
that's how we end
folks,
it.
And that's why Andre won't come back next time.
Yeah. That's been episode 263 of Nintendo Dads. As we close out, we want to say a huge thanks not only to Andre for being on the show this week, but to our Patreon producers, Chris Mears, Dave Ernsberger, Sean Abbott, and Antonio Contronio. You guys are awesome, as well as all of you folks over at patreon.com. Thanks for chiming in and working with some of the new features of the show this week. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know. Give us some feedback. And speaking of feedback, if you enjoy the show, hit up iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you're at. Give us a 5-star review. Write some kind words. It helps other people find the show. And you can find us at nintendodads.org, where you can get all of our feeds for videos, tweets, podcast episodes, our social media, our Patreon page, merch, and more. And you can find us on the socials everywhere. Just type in Nintendo Dads. If we're there, boom, you'll show up. It'll find us. You'll find us. We'd love to connect with you there. You can email us at nintendodads@gmail.com or podcast@nintendodads.org. Or you can be like good old Jeb and call in and leave us a voicemail at 929-25-NDADS. That's 929-256-3237. Big thanks to OC Remix for the music we're using throughout the show. And thanks once again to you listeners for being a part of episode 263. For me, for Tim, for Justin, for Jesse, and for Andre, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Nintendo Dads.
Wobble Puffet,